Hello, Shooter Select Tips here, providing a couple of tips if you are looking to install a aftermarket rear backup camera system in a Polaris General. Mine happens to be a 2024 Premium Edition. I did install a dual camera system in mine because that's the kit I purchased, but this would obviously apply if you're doing a single camera as well. So I'm going to start with the end product. So this is the backup screen installed the way that I intended, and then I will show a couple of things that you may want to be aware of if you were going to do something similar with an aftermarket screen. This one is a 7-inch screen that fits in the same spot where the cubby hole is, or where the OEM screen would normally be. You can see this is actually the camera pointing down to my hitch. The bar here is the back bumper because it's looking down underneath the bumper. I mentioned that I am doing a dual screen or dual camera. So this view is the back of the box, and this is the garage that you see. So you could see actually behind. And then if you don't mind too much of a distorted image, you could see both of them on the split screen where you got the hitch and then the box. So one of the areas that I wanted to change that's different than what the screen comes with. The screen normally comes with a mount that attaches to the back of the screen, and then it's a suction mount very similar to what you'd use for a phone holder. And I did not think that was going to be sturdy enough, especially the way it vibrates on that suction cup, as well as the attachment to the back of the screen is not very robust. Secondly, these screens, this particular one has a U-shaped frame that this would sit in, and then there's 4 bolts on each side that you screw into that frame. Normally that would go up on the dash and mount to your truck if that was the direction you wanted to go. For me, like I mentioned, I wanted to put it in the same spot where the cubby hole is. So I built a couple of custom brackets that I'll show you here in a minute that allowed me to use the existing cubby box and these bolts that come with the screen, but then will allow me to mount it inside the same area. So if I take this screen off and expose the cubby box, so this is the standard cubby box that comes in the Polaris General. Mine's again a 2024, and I think that goes back to quite a few years. It's a little bit tough to see. Maybe if I grab a light, you can see the bracket that I made. So it's basically just a piece of steel I had laying around about 2 inches wide. It happened to have some slots in it, certainly not needed for this application, but I had to do a couple of different bends. One, if you look down the edge of the box, it's a little bit deceiving, but they're actually tapered inward. So the brackets had to be bent at a little bit of an angle just to fit the inside taper on both sides of this. And once the box is out, you can easily attach the brackets to the box with a couple of bolts. Since my screen is covering up, I didn't care that my bolts were longer because that's what I had available. And as this screen is actually the same width as the cubby hole plus the width of the flange, so I had to do a double 90-degree bend for this bracket such that the screen width would fit right over the top of that. So if I pull this out, you can kind of see how that bracket is bent 290 degrees. I did a practice on a scrap piece of metal just to kind of get the bends and the width right. And then once I had that, I was able to bend both of those to make it fit the width of the screen pretty closely. Now, one of the things you'll need to do if you're going to attach something similar, you need to pull out this cubby hole. If you look online, there's videos that show how to remove the dash. There's some pins up on front by the window that you can remove. The dash comes up, and then you can pull this box out pretty easily. However, if you don't want to do that step and you're very careful, if you take a scraper and a metal scraper that's really relatively stiff and pull down this ledge, you can get this box out. My box is loose right now because I haven't fully snapped it back into place. But the only thing that's really holding this box in are these protruding plastic pieces that catch on a lip underneath your dash. So this is flexible, so you can see I can bend those down. The middle part is the easier part. These ones on the edge are the ones that are a little bit more tricky because obviously with the 90-degree angle of the plastic there, they don't bend down as much. But you can work those out and then pull this box out pretty easily so you don't take the dash off if you just want to save a step. The reason I also wanted the ability to use these brackets and the existing bolts for the LCD screen, because I want to be able to take this screen off when I wash the rig, as these cheaper RV backup camera screens aren't waterproof. There's a quick disconnect cable, allows me to connect or disconnect the cable and then pull that whole screen out so I can wash the rig. Now this cable all feeds out. If I take this box out and pull out the wiring, you'll see that this is where the power comes in, as well as the video feed signals from the cameras, which I'll show you in a minute. So those are all hidden behind that box. There's one cable, 4-pin cable wire for each camera that contains the video feed as well as the power. Now I prefer to go with the hardwired video screens instead of the Wi-Fi. I figure as long as I'm having to run a wire to power the camera, I'd prefer the robustness of just using a wired camera than relying on the Wi-Fi to work all the time. And I know my RV rig, the Wi-Fi does have a little bit of lag, so I don't really prefer that. However, this is a much shorter distance on a General versus a truck and an RV, so maybe the Wi-Fi lag is actually pretty good. Again, I just preferred the wired option. Now for wiring and powering the unit, I'm coming off the bus on the front of the rig, which I'll show you in a minute. But I found this rear view camera toggle switch on Amazon that obviously has two options. It's powered on when I am with the key ignition turned on. So I want to make sure that I never accidentally leave the camera on. So I did not connect the power of the camera to the 12-volt always on. I connected it to the bus line that has power only when the ignition is on. So when the camera is in this position, it lights up so you can see it, but the screen is going to be off. And then when you press your camera button on, you can then have the screen come on. So you have the option of just leaving it on all the time, and then every time you turn the ignition off, the screen goes off. Or if you don't like seeing the screen, you can just turn the button off and then it stays off. So again, for the ability to take the box off, just to pry that down, and then a different option to secure your screen to that box. Now if I go to the front of the General, just to show you, for those that may have not tapped into their bus before, these adapters you can buy off Amazon that plug into your bus bar, make it wiring pretty easily. So this is the wiring that I have going down to that rear camera switch. If you do want your screen to come on all the time, you could just connect it to the red and the black, and that's power always on. As I mentioned, I only want it to be on when the ignition's on, so I'm using the blue. Moving on to where the location of the cameras are placed, this is the one that is mounted in the back, facing down towards the hitch. And I spent a little time trying to figure out how to fit this camera in. The ones that come OEM are more shallow or smaller, and they are able to fit in the area. So when you tip the box, the dump box, it doesn't rotate and hit the shield of your muffler. These cameras are a little bit larger in height. So I had a little difficulty finding a option to fit where I felt there was enough clearance after the box pivoted to still protect the camera. I was able to use the brackets that come with the camera, which are pretty standard looking from other models, to mount right to the steel frame of the box on both sides. And to give myself a little bit more clearance, I elected to cut out a little bit of two of these reinforcement pieces underneath the box. They're like fins. Took a saw, cut them out, such I can get the camera up closer to the bottom of the box, such that now when I do move and rotate the box over, it's kind of hard to see it. Well, maybe I'll try to go down this side. You can see that I still have clearance of the camera there with that shield of the muffler. And by cutting out those fins, you gain about another ½ inch, which I think should be enough for that camera not to get impacted by the heat when the box is tipped. As long as I have the box tipped, I'll just show there's multiple ways you could run the wiring. I just happen to run the wiring inside a plastic housing just to protect a little bit over the top, and I ran it down where the axle is and then up through the console box. So if you just run it underneath the unit, you're basically running it underneath here, and then I eventually brought it up through and behind the cubby box. For the other camera, this one I just mounted up in the back where you can see the box, and then of course straight back if you want. I just drilled a hole directly inside the roof liner, brought the cable through, and it's a little bit harder to see, but you can see the cable run. And I bought these plastic clips just to have a little bit of control of the cables that goes down the frame. And then this one I ran behind the seat, and I just was able to get it underneath this plastic housing. You can pop this housing out and get that cable underneath there and run it along the second one to come up along the console as well. So hopefully that helps. Just a couple of options of how to put in an aftermarket camera. Thank you.